关税回到10%，我们就赢了嘛。
If tariffs go back to 10%, does that mean we've won? No, we're still very far from winning. The trade war is a full-scale battle on land, sea, and air. The tariff fight is just the open, visible part. Financial sanctions are hidden attacks. The real chokehold comes from technology battles, like chip blockades and technical barriers. Tariffs are only the most direct and surface-level confrontation. We must stay alert during this 90-day pause. The semiconductor and new energy sanctions have not been lifted. Those financial influencers shouting about victory are either foolish or dishonest. They just want to profit by cutting others down. Let's keep it simple. Whoever controls the power is the real winner. When they say they'll raise tariffs, they raise them. When they say they'll fight, they fight. When they say stop, it stops. We can only respond passively. That's not winning. The real strength lies in who can start a tariff war and who can make the other side sit down for equal talks.
关税下降了，船公司来打劫了。
Tariffs dropped, but then shipping companies started to rip us off. Just after the Geneva Agreement was signed, shipping container prices jumped 8 times in one day. The tariff standoff between China and the US was put on pause. This 90-day golden window triggered a frenzy across the country. Over 230,000 foreign trade companies scrambled for orders. Nobody knows what will happen after these 90 days. Everyone who can ship is rushing to do so. Some customers are stocking up more than usual. Many worry this might be the last chance to catch a policy bonus. On May 12th, China and the U.S. issued a joint statement. Both sides paused their reciprocal tariffs for 90 days. During this time, the U.S. lowered tariffs on Chinese imports from 145% to 30%. China lowered tariffs on American products from 125% to 10%. Also, the U.S. raised tariffs on small packages under $800 from 0 to 120%, then lowered them to 54%. This is good news for Chinese exporters, whose U.S. business had nearly stopped in the last month. Chinese manufacturers seized the buffer period to rush shipments to the U.S. Container bookings from China to the U.S. surged, and shipping fees rose accordingly. Container tracking company Vizion reported that by May 14th, bookings jumped 277% to 21,500 20-foot containers. But the tariff uncertainties faced by Chinese exporters and importers are far more than just the 90-day negotiation period with a 24% tariff. Many other uncertainties remain unresolved. On May 18th, China's Ministry of Commerce announced it will impose anti-dumping tariffs as high as 74.9% on POM copolymer imports from the U.S. starting May 19th. European products face a 34.5% tariff. Japanese companies like Polyplastics and others face 35.5%. Asahi Kasei faces 24.5%. Imports from Taiwan face 32.6%, though Formosa Plastics and Polyplastics Taiwan get lower rates of 4% and 3.8%. According to the journal Modern Chemistry Industry, in 2024, China's main POM copolymer imports come from the US, Malaysia, Germany, and Taiwan. The US accounts for 59,000 tons, or 15% of total imports. POM copolymer may sound unfamiliar, but it's essential to modern industry. It can partially replace metals like copper, zinc, tin, and lead. It's used in car parts, electronics, industrial machinery, daily goods, sports equipment, medical tools, pipes, and building materials. French newspaper L'Echo points out the puzzle. China keeps importing huge amounts of this plastic, even as imports rise. Since 2010, China's consumption of POM copolymer plastic has grown on average 5% a year and has doubled, now accounting for over half the global demand. Notably, Reuters reported that during the May 12 talks in Switzerland, China promised to cancel some non-tariff retaliatory measures against the U.S., including suspending anti-dumping investigations against American chemical company DuPont and others. Reports say that the Chinese Communist Party's investigation into POM copolymer has been going on for a year, but instead of suspending the investigation as agreed, China suddenly announced a result, which is quite suspicious. On May 18th, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told NBC that the U.S. government is focusing on deals with its 18 most important trading partners. Whether agreements happen depends on if the other side is sincere. He also warned that for countries lacking sincerity, the U.S. may send official letters stating tariff rates, which could go back to the highest levels set on April 2nd. Besant's remarks about a lack of good faith seem to point at China. This tough stance has led foreign media to interpret that the U.S. is taking a more aggressive approach in trade talks. The UK's Financial Times said this shows how tense tariff negotiations have become, contrasting with recent U.S. claims that countries are eager to negotiate. Some analysts believe China's sudden move to impose a 47.9% anti-dumping tariff on American POM copolymer could be retaliation against the U.S.'s anti-subsidy and anti-dumping investigations. Just before the talks in Switzerland, on May 7th, the U.S. Department of Commerce announced it would impose a massive 477.97% anti-dumping tariff on Chinese thermoformed molded fiber products. Besides anti-dumping duties, the U.S. also announced it is launching a countervailing duty investigation on the same Chinese products. Vietnam also faces tariffs on these products, but their rates are much lower, ranging from 0.76% to 211.6%, far less than China's. On May 20th, the U.S. International Trade Commission voted that large imports of cheap solar products from Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam caused material injury or threat to American solar panel makers. This paves the way for anti-subsidy and anti-dumping duties on those products. Earlier, on April 21st, the U.S. Department of Commerce announced tariffs of up to 3,403.96% on solar cells and panels imported from Southeast Asia. Though they came from Southeast Asia, these products were mainly produced in Chinese factories. These Southeast Asian countries are key suppliers to the U.S. solar industry. Meanwhile, Chinese solar manufacturers have a huge presence in Southeast Asia, almost monopolizing the global solar supply chain, from polysilicon materials to battery components, with about 90% market share. Reports say that the U.S. views Southeast Asia as a backdoor for Chinese products to enter the U.S. market. Many factories and supply chains move there from China, absorbing huge Chinese investment. U.S. solar makers accuse Chinese companies of dumping cheap products through Southeast Asian factories to dodge U.S. trade rules. Last year, Chinese companies invested $173 billion abroad. The ongoing tariff war has accelerated this trend. Many Chinese manufacturers have planned to start new businesses in the U.S. to avoid rising tariffs. These include industries from petrochemical products to furniture. On May 19th, Mr. Fan, a Chinese furniture maker, opened a factory in the U.S. He did this not only to avoid U.S. tariffs, but also because of competition back home.
Online people say American buyers are begging factories to ship again. Foreign trade is coming back to life. Ports are still jammed. Yesterday, I asked about shipping. Containers through the U.S. now cost $7,500 each, and space is very hard to find. But the truth is, this 90-day tariff pause might actually be the overture to the real tariff war. Some factory friends say after customers finish current orders, they are not placing new ones. Some customers say even if they order, factories don't dare to accept because after July, shipments might stop. What about factories that don't have the ability to move to Southeast Asia? I think these 90 days give foreign buyers time to find suppliers outside China, but also give domestic factories a chance to rethink foreign trade. After years of traditional export, is moving factories out of China the only option? Clearly not. Look at me. I started as an OEM factory doing contract work, and now I make my own brand in the US. I focus on high-barrier offline channels. I've said before, we must build our own brands and channels to be independent and strong. That's the future of foreign trade. If your main market is the US, come build your own direct-to-consumer sales channels there. Do retail with cross-border e-commerce and wholesale with offline distribution. Sell your own brand. Furniture factories can even share our warehouse space.
Even building factories directly in the U.S. will bring more pressure. The problem is, going overseas has always been a passive choice, and one that brings risks. The U.S. doesn't want Chinese companies to expand their influence there. Bloomberg reports that Trump tried to pressure Southeast Asian and European countries in trade talks, asking them to limit business and investment with China, including export restrictions. This 90-day buffer ends in July. Trade uncertainty will rise, and companies will face tougher challenges. Mr. Wang, a Chinese appliance company employee, told foreign media that the U.S. tariff war greatly impacts China's economy. It affects not only export companies, but also non-export firms, making domestic competition even fiercer. He said his company already started layoffs. Their products mainly target the domestic market, but that caused big export companies like Midea and Hisense to shift back to domestic sales. A lawyer working with Chinese foreign trade agencies said half of China's foreign trade companies have closed, and business volume has dropped sharply. In Yiwu, the world's small commodities capital, many factory owners are reporting no new U.S. orders. Many factories have closed or moved. Factory owner Mr. Yang said many factories only ship old U.S. orders and have no new orders. Closed factories are clearing inventory. Foreign buyers wait for cheap goods. He also started selling leftover stock, but profits are thin. Yang said, "No work means we've cut the staff to the limit. Tariffs dropped, so we're shipping old orders. We have enough work to last until the end of the month, but worry about next month. Yiwu's exports to the Middle East and Africa also dropped a lot this year. Consumption is weak. Everything is slowing. Small companies and workshops can't survive 3 months. Many will close." Yang added, many property owners in Yiwu don't run factories anymore because renting out is more profitable. Factory rentals dropped from 20 yuan to 16 yuan per square meter a year, but it's still high. He said, since there's no business now, many moved to Jiangxi or Henan to cut costs. Lots of factory spaces in Yiwu are empty. Rent there no longer fits low-end manufacturing. My friend rented in Shangrao, Jiangxi for 6 yuan per square meter, the price Yiwu had 20 years ago. Textile factories in Jiangsu are moving to Xinjiang and building new plants. Yiwu leftover goods dealer Mr. Tian said Yiwu is a foreign trade city selling goods nationwide and worldwide. He used to do supply chain work with spot goods. He stocked a lot and now faces excess inventory. Prices keep falling and inventory keeps piling up. Business is very tough this year. Because goods won't sell, he switched to selling leftovers by weight, mainly to poor regions in Africa. But this year, there's too much stock and it's hard to clear. Mr. Jia, a boss of an e-commerce company in Yiwu, said they plan to move to nearby places with lower rent. Their warehouse is several thousand square meters now, but moving could save them hundreds of thousands of yuan in rent each year. They have been cutting salaries and laying off staff. This month, they will move because their current warehouse is not used much anymore. A few hundred square meters will be enough. Signs of a new round of U.S.-China trade war escalations are clear. President Trump is seeking opinions and preparing plans for new targeted tariffs on strategic industries like pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and critical minerals. On May 13th, the U.S. Department of Commerce officially repealed Biden-era rules on artificial intelligence technology exports and launched stricter export controls. The U.S. is pushing to decouple supply chains from China, rebuilding semiconductor and other industries centered around the U.S. With CCP subsidies, China's electric vehicle industry has grown rapidly. Now, over 100 electric vehicle makers exist, creating huge overcapacity. China's car makers fight fierce price wars, causing foreign companies to reduce production and investment in China. On May 15th, U.S. automaker General Motors announced it would stop exporting cars from the U.S. to China. This follows Ford's similar move in April, showing U.S. car companies are rethinking their China strategies. U.S. car makers face troubles not only from China's high tariffs pushing up prices, but also from the rapid rise of domestic brands backed by Chinese policies. BYD's net profit grew 34% in 2024, making it the world's largest electric vehicle maker. SAIC's MG brand sold 243,000 cars in Europe, up 5.1% yearly. Under fierce competition, traditional car makers cut business, lower profits, or leave some markets. GM's halt in exports to China reflects challenges global car makers face from geopolitics, tariffs, and shifting markets. Experts warn the CCP will try to delay trade talks over the next 3 months to gain an advantage in the trade war with Washington. Alexander Liao, a Chinese expert who worked in Hong Kong, London, and Washington for decades, said on May 19th that the CCP sees Trump's limited term as a weakness. Also, the Republicans hold only a slim majority in Congress, another weakness. He said if China drags negotiations into January or February 2026 and reignites trade tensions, the U.S. economy and the 2026 midterm elections could be affected. But Akio Yaita, a senior Japanese journalist and head of an Indo-Pacific strategy think tank, warned that if China really wants good business, it must reform many things. This includes secretly subsidizing exporters, damaging the environment, and disrespecting intellectual property. Otherwise, the next wave of tariff battles may come soon.